welcome back to my channel. It is of course Chelsea of She Designs Things. And in today's video, I'm going to be sharing with you how to correct your Google fonts once you connect it to your Google site if you are having an issue where your fonts are not displaying as they should. Alright, so if you'd like to know more about fixing that issue, then stay tuned. Alright, so before we go ahead and get into correcting the fonts, I know that I've been gone about a month. I had, my vacation planned, and I technically had all of my posts planned out. And then I also had my stint scheduled, but then unfortunately that got canceled and rescheduled to the end of this month, so November 27th. And then you guys know in October 25th I had my angiogram. So if you would like to know more about updates about what goes on in my life, what's happening with the courses, what's happening with Open Font Sake, all of that kind of stuff, I do have a blog, and it is just simply blog.shedesignsthings.com. Blog is the subdomain, so you do not put www. before that. It's literally just blog.shedesignsthings.com. And if you check out the latest post, you can actually sign up to learn more or know when I post. I do also try to kind of add this in, whenever I send out a notification in Designs. So, you might still receive the notification there as well. But here is just kind of the life updates. The trip was great. And then I have also dropped some new Canva DIY logos inside of my Etsy shop, and I may or may not have a cat named Moon. May or may not. So yeah, life is going on as it should. And I also am starting another side thing. Well, it's not really a side thing, but I enjoy doing it, and that is my own clothing brand, so stay on the lookout for that. It's really just because, again, I am a creative, and creative for me means many things. Alright, so let's go ahead and get into fixing those fonts. Alright, so I was sent this question by my mentee. She seemed to be having an issue with her fonts. And I know a lot of people have run across this issue where you will see that you have your font listed one way, it's all beautiful, you love the way it looks, and then once you connect to your domain, it's like, what happened? Now my fonts are no longer the way that I want it to be. So this is going to happen, or it could possibly happen for a number of reasons. I am just going to share with you how to fix the most common reason that I have found. In this particular instance, we have a site that was created for someone else using a separate Google site, meaning it was using a separate Google account. And so in order to not confuse anyone, let's just pretend that you purchase a template, but you never... the person that you purchased the template for doesn't supply you with the font files. When they don't supply you with the font files, those font files don't render. That is one particular error. That's one error that is quite possible that could happen. Another error, and this is something that I found to be probably more so in line with those who make their own sites, is that you don't create a theme, or you create a theme, but you've left fonts in specific places that you're no longer using, and you have multiple text boxes that contain various fonts in that text box. That is going to give you a CSS style error. It's not going to know what to render. Because it's not knowing what to render, it's going to default to web-safe font. And in this instance, it defaulted to the most common web-safe fonts, which is just going to be, for her, like a Times New Roman, and what's the other one? An Arial. Times New Roman and Arial. Goodness, I almost forgot those. So here, that is the issue that we have under this site. So how was I able to locate this issue, and what did I do to help her fix the issue or correct the issue right away? Whenever I viewed her site, the site that she sent me using that custom URL, I didn't get an issue. I saw the fonts as they were, as they should have been, with the exception of on my actual phone. My phone did not display them correctly. So I thought maybe her Chrome browser or whatever browser she was using was out of date. I did suggest to her to update it, But once I went on ahead and take a look at the application inside of Chrome and just kind of see whatever issues would come up, I did notice that the resources were failing to load for a status of 403. All right, so what does this 403 error mean? It basically means that the server understands what you have requested, but for some reason, it just can't do anything about it. You don't have the permission, or it's just like not allowing it. It's like, oh, going to the bank and you're not an authorized user under this account. Yes, we can see the account. You're just not authorized to access it. Why do you think this is? There are a few telltale signs of why this is once you start to understand custom mapped domains inside of a site. When you use a custom domain with your Google site, it is technically no longer hosted on sites.google.com, and cookies for star.google.com are not sent. So this becomes a Google account authentication issue. It's no longer a Google site issue, but an authentication issue with fonts. I know. Who knew? Who could have possibly known? Apparently, Google has known, because this is where it's located. If you go and check it out, I will leave a link down below for this. Again, located just right here. This is where you're going to find that issue for your fonts. But let's talk about how we can correct the issue whenever it comes up for your Google site. Whenever I actually hover over this, I can see that she had a number of fonts listed. So I just asked her if these were all the fonts that she was using under this particular Google site. And my mentee said no. Alright, so to fix the font issue that my mentee was having was pretty simple. I just asked her if she was using those fonts: Allure, Comforta, Dancing Script, Montserrat, Proxima Nova. She said she was just using Allure and Montserrat for everything. So that was strange to me that she was getting such an issue. I do understand if you're using a multitude of fonts, you can sometimes get an issue. I myself use several fonts under my own website, and I mean a ridiculous amount. You would be surprised. So for her to be receiving such an issue under just one, I thought it would go away, but because it didn't, I decided to do just that little bit more, in-depth search. So she said that the issue was still occurring, and I wasn't seeing it under my site. Whenever I looked at her website, again, it looked just like this, normal. But when I looked at my phone is where I noticed that it was not looking the same. So what I decided to do or recommend to her was to go to each section and clear the formatting, because the data was conflicting from what I could see. The reason I thought that the data would be conflicting is because I remember her originally asking me what fonts she wanted to use for this particular site. She started out each section using a different font. She didn't start off using a different theme. That's why if you ever create a Google site and you don't create a theme, but then you apply a theme afterwards, some sections will not change. And that's because it's kind of appended or stuck to whatever you have selected there. You made a manual change, not one that would be automatic or automated through the themes system. So I asked her to clear it, and as soon as she cleared it, she's like, that did it. That did the job. So it worked on my phone when I took a look at it as well. So the easiest way to clear a font issue, if you're having issues with the way it's coming up or displaying on your website whenever you connect that domain, just remember to clear the formatting under each section. If you have a plethora of sections, it might take you some time. I apologize. Another thing is to remember that if you create a site, again, for someone else, and that person does not have those fonts in their own Google account, it is going to do the same thing. So I always recommend to my clients, I give them a list now of the fonts that we're going to be using, and I express to them, you need to add these to your own Google account. And a lot of people ask, like, how do I do that? It's very simple. You can do it from a document if you want. You just need to have it as a part of your Google account. The best way to do it is to create a new Google site, since we're talking specifically about sites, but to create a new Google site and just go into themes and then just start sourcing fonts from there. Just add those fonts to your actual Google account. And that is how you'll be able to have the fonts that you're using without it giving you so much issue or so much error. Because once I transfer that site over to you, that is now your Drive file that's going to be missing that CSS file, the data that's supposed to be there. And the only reason I know that is because when you look under the hood of a Google site, it's very simple. It tells you what the issue is, but there's no workaround or way of fixing it for us. So I do hope that this video, while short and breezy, was helpful in helping you fix your issues with your fonts and the way they display under your Google site. And don't worry, I do plan to make another video here soon regarding the DNS issue with www and subdomains. I am noticing that if you're using Namecheap or GoDaddy and you don't use the www subdomain, then your Google site will not show up. This is a known issue, but is there a way to fix it? Absolutely. But just keep in mind what I just said. Google account authentication may not work since a custom domain mapped site is no longer hosted on sites.google.com and cookies for *.google.com are not sent. So how do we fix it? You'll have to wait till the next video. Thanks again so much for watching, and of course, see ya.